All right. So let's talk a little bit about what we were wrong about, because this is something I think people like to talk about. Because if you may remember, actually it's over there. I have a copy of the 2020 summer edition of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Remember that? Remember when we put out a magazine? Not this magazine, but not the recruiting edition, but the summer magazine.
They never stop.
Full of predictions. Full of predictions in there.
Mm-hmm.
We go through, we rank, we do district predictions for every district. We do state rankings. Of course, there's a whole bunch of college coverage. We're going to start working on the 2021 edition here very soon. Please don't make me start yet. But
Cries a little.
One thing that we get a lot, and there's a couple of different times in which we get it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right when the magazine comes out and everybody's looking through it. And then also, I would say, like 2 to 3 rounds deep in the playoffs.
Yes.
Is when we get people saying that we are sleeping on them.
They've been sleeping on us the whole year, every time.
I hate this phrase.
I do too.
Okay? I hate this
It's
phrase
in my nightmares at
that
night.
you're sleeping on us. I loathe this phrase because it has no context. Like, you can say that about anything, okay? And like it has no like there's no evidence. You don't need any evidence to back it up. You can just say, like, if I pick, for example, if I pick the Packers to beat the Buccaneers on Sunday, right? Buccaneers fans might say that I am sleeping on the Buccaneers.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's like, I mean.
All it means is that you're mad that I didn't pick your team to win. And by the way, I'm not right all the time. I did go 11-1 on my title game picks, though. But I'm not right all the time. Okay? So me predicting a team to win does not necessarily enter that into the universe, nor does it mean that I am not paying attention to the other team. I am not sleeping on your team.
I was say the fact that we're talking about them anyway means that we're not sleeping. If we're not talking about them, then maybe we're sleeping on them.
And
but
so,
we're bringing them up. They're just going to lose.
Now, I do think, though, that there are, and because in the end, I would say that of the 1,200 and whatever UIL Texas high school football teams, I would say every year there's about 12 to 15 that come out of nowhere that we have just 100% completely and totally whiffed on. Plain and simple. Teams that we did not see coming, teams that I think overachieved their own, maybe even their own expectations, but teams that we did not see coming. Because we're not perfect. I think we do pretty good, but we're not perfect. And so I wanted to take a look at the teams that we quote unquote slept on. Who actually has a claim to that? And here's what I did: is basically I compared our preseason rankings to our postseason computer rankings.
Yes.
And how far they went. Now, look, I've also limited this to a little bit. That I limited it to what is the postseason top 50 for each classification. Okay? Because I'll be honest, if we had you ranked 210th on in our preseason computer rankings, right, in 6A, and then you finished 140th, like, that's really good. But like, I hate to say not relevant from a statewide perspective. It's obviously relevant on the granular level, but to me, if you're talking about sleeping on a team, that would mean that you have achieved something at a greater level that is deserving of that kind of recognition as opposed to like more localized. Does that make sense? That, basically if you go 0-10, we think we don't do record predictions, but if we thought you were going to go 0-10 and you go 4-6, that's great.
But it's not like going 9 and
exactly. I think these teams rise above that. And so I picked one in each classification of teams that we actually did sleep on in 2020.
Which I feel like, too, real fast, I've noticed high school coaches are really good. Most of them are really good at admitting when their team even exceeded their expectations. Because they'll very easily tell you, yeah, man, like, I thought, 4 or 5 wins coming off of an 0-10 season was very, very doable. And here we are with 7 or 8 wins. Like, I feel like they're really good at admitting that.
Coaches will shoot you straight. And that's why whenever we do have coaches on, I do like to ask them, Like, I'm surprised you're here. Are you surprised you're here? And usually they'll have a good answer of like, we thought this was possible, but I think that we've played above our paper and stuff like that. And I think that, we've had some surprises that have in a positive way. Okay. So I've picked one in each classification. We'll start in 6A. I think the team we slept on was CE King.
Yes.
Out of Houston. This is a team that was completely and totally off our radar coming into the season. They were, I believe, 95th in 6A in our computer rankings. Look, I think that this is a team that really overachieved in a lot of ways. This is a team that ended up going, in Derek Fitzhenry's season, ended up going 8-4, including, by the way, like a 5-point loss at Huntsville, which aged very, very well. They beat Fort Bend Ridgepoint, which is another very good win. They came out of a very difficult district, but they played Atascocita really tough. They played North Shore really tough, but they finished third in that district. And for a team that we did not think, and by the way, they won a playoff game over Channelview. So this is a team ended up getting knocked out by Shadow Creek in the second round. I think CE King is a team that definitely overachieved our expectations coming into this year. So when you take a look at a team in 6A that I think has an actual case to be made that we slept on them, I would look at the Panthers as CE King. In 5A, a few different places we could go.
I like this one, though. I agree with you on this one.
I think the team that we slept on in 5A is Leander Rouse. Now, they are one of the big stories of the year. They went 1-9 last year, and if you know something about how we do business, we think that the most accurate measure of future success is past success. And so when you go 1-9, we're going to be like, okay, well, we'll see you in a little bit, right? Instead, they reverse the whip. They go 10-2. They win their district. Their one loss on the year in the regular season was against A&M Consolidated, which is pretty darn good.
At the time, I think they were the number 2 team,
right?
3 team, maybe.
But they roll through their district. They finish unbeaten. They win I believe they win 2 playoff games. They go to the third round of the playoffs. And end up losing in a relatively tight one. Remember to Liberty Hill. This is the first time Liberty Hill had shown anybody had challenged Liberty Hill. I think Joshua Mann's squad was a team that we definitely did not see coming, and a team that we probably did not put the respect on that we thought. Now, I think part of it, I'm not here I'm not here to defend myself, but I will say that this was a team that probably in hindsight maybe we should have seen coming. They had 10 starters coming back on offense. But that defense was going to be a big problem for us, and that's kind of why we thought, in a 1-9 record, not sure how they were going to be. But instead, Leander Rouse, definitely a team that overachieved our expectations.
That playoff game against Liberty Hill was really impressive. Even though they lost, I mean, to do that and to put up that many points on that Liberty Hill defense was we all kind of looked at that and was like, oh, wow, okay.
Totally agree. All right, let's go to 4A. 4A, Livingston. Okay, this is another team that we, plain and simple, did not think a ton about. And I think that we got blinded by the fact that they had not had any success recently, right? This is a team that had not had a ton of success recently. And then they start off 0-2. And we're like, okay, well, we've got Livingston pegged, right? We thought that they weren't going to be very good. This is a team that started off pretty much completely outside of our radar. Started 77th in 4A Division 1, end up finishing in the top 40, 37, by going 8-3. And by the way, giving Chapel Hill, they win their district, and giving Chapel Hill, who ended up going to the third round of playoffs, a real big scare. But that was, to me, Livingston was a team that overachieved our expectations this year. And I think that we had Coach Finus Van over on the show back when they were really on a run. I think Livingston overachieved our expectations this year, and if you want to say that we slept on Livingston at the beginning of the year, I think that you're well within your rights, because we may have had them ranked. Boy, I would need to see, but we may have had them missing the playoffs. In fact, I can look that up real quick if you want to vamp for a second. You're doing great. This is great. Yeah. You're doing great.
I have something to say about the next one for sure.
Oh, I know. Well, that's not helpful right now, Pickle. Hold on. I'm going to look and see where we did have Livingston in our district pick. Let's see.
I do not
Livingston,
know.
We had them picked last in their district.
Okay? All right.
We had them picked dead last in their district after going 2-7 last year. And instead, they win the darn district. That is a team we definitely missed on this year with the Livingston Lions. All right. Let's go to 3A. 3A. Few different places. I think there's an obvious one, which would be the 3A Division I state champs in Jim Ned.
Yep.
But that was a team that went from 6-5 and unranked to a state championship. The team that really surprised me a lot was Blanco. Okay?
I think this whole district.
Sure.
I think if you want to throw 13 3A
Sure.
in that, I think that's.
I think you're right. They of course they were in the Llano district, which is why Pickle knows so much about them. But this was a team in Blanco that was coming off of a pretty lackluster season, right? Coming off of a 4-6 season, and instead they got really hot, won a playoff game, and by the way, very nearly took down Vanderbilt Industrial in the second round of the playoffs. But I mean, they looked really, really good doing it. Ended up finishing, I believe, third in that district behind Llano and Lago Vista. But a team that I think really overachieved, and getting that win over, I think, non-district win over Canyon Lake was very impressive. But this was a team that I think overachieved our expectations, and I think you're right that speaks more to the whole district, that between Lago and between Llano,
Yeah,
and then
I mean,
you add in
3
Blanco.
rounds into the playoffs, 4 rounds into the playoffs, and Blanco played them tight. Like, I remember watching some of those games, and it was like, ooh, buddy, they're testing it here for Llano and Lago both.
I mean, yeah, exactly. They played them tight at both times. So I would say Blanco is a team in 3A that has a claim to say that we slept on them. In 2A, I went a little weird with this one.
It's so accurate.
I'm going to go the entire Region 3 of 2A Division 1. So Region 3 of 2A Division 1, coming into the season, we were like, all right, well, it's going to be St. Augustine, and then
the field.
kind of doesn't matter at that point, right? We thought they were the runaway favorite. We also thought that maybe Alto or Groveton were the next teams that would be in that mix. Maybe Thorndale. Right?
And then here come the Bears.
So the teams that I think were most remarkable there, Timpson, right? They were obviously impressive, a team that ended up winning the darn region. Beckville, or did Beckville win the region?
No, Timpson won the region.
Timpson won the region.
Because they played Shiner.
Right. Timpson, Beckville,
Normandy.
I would say Normandy too. We just missed on all 3 of those. Now, part of it is that St. Augustine didn't live up to the hype, so there was no real team there.
That did open the floodgates a little bit.
But if you look at our regional rankings, right, those teams that we just mentioned, right, Timpson, we had 14th in the region, okay? Beckville, we had 19th in the region, right? Normandy, God almighty, we have 15th in the region. I mean, these were teams that were totally off our radar. If there is a region that we totally whiffed on this year, it would have to be 2A Division 1 Region 3. Like, we just totally whiffed on it. And then in the 6-man ranks, in 1A, I want to give a little bit of shout-out to the mighty Tigers of Oglesby. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I could say Oglesby. Oglesby's up there. That's right. I sent you Abbott. I want to give a shout-out to Oglesby.
I was like,
Oglesby was a team that surprised us. They ended up going 10-2, beating Oakwood in the first round of the playoffs. I thought was really impressive. They ended up losing to Richland Springs. The other team, though, as much as I hate to give Terry Crawford credit, is the Abbott Panthers. I mean, Abbott ends up going 11-1. This is a team that was coming off of a really, I think, disappointing season. Last year they were 3-7 the year before, and we thought in the rough and tumble Region 3, we're like, I don't know if this is going to be the year for Coach Crawford. But instead, we picked them not just to miss the playoffs. We picked them to miss the playoffs in 4th place out of 5. Okay, and remember, only top 2 go. So we did not think they were going to be anywhere close to the playoffs. Instead, they win the district. They get a win over defending champion Blum. Right? They get a win over Milford. And then they get they end up losing to Union Hill in the second round of the playoffs. I think that Abbott, from the 6-man perspective, was probably the team that we missed on the most. Part of it is they went 3-7 last year.
Coach Crawford is here listening.
Well, good.
To
I
you
hate
say
to give him credit.
How wrong you were.
I hate to give him credit, but it's true. Like, that was a team that we didn't see coming at all, and instead they end up winning the district and getting back to that form and looking like a team that. It's not long ago. In 2015, they won a title.
I was going to say, we talked about. I know we had this conversation last year after after we kind of settled down from the season. Something that I feel like goes into big account and is always something that we're impressed by is a team that can go and have an off year and then start to come back. Like that's how you start getting into those program rankings, if you want to call it. Is you can have an off year every now and then, but seeing the difference in a really off year bouncing back. That's where I feel like you start catching eyes program-wise.
Totally agree. I thought Abbott was one of the better stories of the year in the 6-man ranks, and yeah, obviously district champion. Things went well for them. All right, so there you go. Those are the teams that we slept on in 2020.